So it feels like in the postmodern world that we live in, the media that we're going to end up finding most edifying and meaningful and moving is going to come from very unlikely places, and that's really been the case with me and the visual novel I Wani Hug That Gator. I can understand why you might want to click off right now, but if you stay with me, I promise I will at least try and make my case for why this has basically been the best story and romance in fiction I've seen in years. And this is made by a team of Anons from 4chan that decided to make a fan game of a fan game of a really bad rhythm game. So, some backstory on this because I think it's important is I Want to Hug That Gator is made by Cave Manon Studios, which were originally a group of Anons from 4chan who were fans of an upcoming rhythm game called Goodbye Volcano High, which is set in a, world with dinosaurs going to a high school. And it was a game that was basically ruined by a lot of bad writing and bad character writing decisions. It was partially advised on by Sweet Baby Inc., which is why a lot of woke stuff got put in, like a lot of the characters being, trans, on binary, and all of that. And so and the game kept getting delayed, and when it came out, it wasn't really received quite as much as people thought it would be. So a bunch of Anons on 4chan who were kind of fans of the concept decided to make their own kind of parody fan game called Snoot Game, which is they just made a visual novel of, hey, let's say a human named Anon goes to the school and falls in love with the main character, Fang. And that actually got received a lot better, not least because it was free and it was made with a lot more love and care, and they got rid of anything woke. And then the studio decided, or the Anons decided to come together and make a properly released game on Steam called I Want to Hug That Gator, which is kind of their own version of that, where it's a similar premise, of course, which is a human named Inko G. Nito, who wears sunglasses and is dressed like Sans from Undertale, goes to a dinosaur high school that specializes in the arts. He meets a girl named Olivia, who is the titular Gator, or Baryonyx is more accurate, as that's the type of dinosaur she actually is. Falls in love with her, and the decisions that you make throughout the game will affect your the endings, of which there are four. Now, briefly, to plug myself, I streamed the whole thing, not every ending, but I got one of the endings on Twitch. I've decided that I'm going to start regularly streaming on Twitch at least every Thursday, and trying to get to every Thursday and Sunday around 4 or 5 p.m. So yeah, twitch.tv/ Fritz Imperial. I'd be very appreciative if you would join me there. I initially am like, well, I want to stream this on Twitch because I'm too embarrassed to do this on YouTube, and I don't want Dave, the distributist, to see this. But he's going to now, for better or for worse. But anyways, yeah, so this simple love story I found super emotionally satisfying. I love the characters. I think the art design and artwork and the music was all really good. I thought it was paced very well, even though it took a lot longer when I was streaming it, but that's just because I was reading it out loud. That takes a lot longer. I was making some commentary while I was doing it. And yeah, I found it wholly edifying. I don't know if I would call it high art, but it left me a lot happier and a lot more moved and actually felt something than any real recent AAA game that I can remember. As much as now, I badmouthed Baldur's Gate 3 when I reviewed Andy and Lele, but it's just because compared to that and also compared to this, the characters in that just feel so bland and dull and cartoonish, whereas Olivia and Inko and the other characters in the game feel so lifelike and real, and I was completely invested in their simple high school adventures more so than anything in a grand fantasy like Baldur's Gate 3, because whilst the characters were good, I just did not develop that same connection because I couldn't really. I have more in common with people like Inko and Olivia and Damien and all that than I do with, I don't know, anybody in Baldur's Gate 3. But yeah, and even more so of what this game is, or what more accurately this visual novel is, in my mind, is it's a reconstruction of a romance visual novel, because there's a glut. I'm not really an expert on visual novels. I've played a few. I think Danganronpa counts as one. Although it's not a pure visual novel. There's a lot of gameplay elements to it, but in for the majority of those games, those are visual novels. There's been, probably a million romance visual novels from Japan, or fan ones made in the West, about high school guy falls in love with a variety of cute anime girls. And the postmodern deconstruction of this, it came in the form of Doki Doki Literature Club by Dan Salvato, where, hey, these girls that you're basically objectifying end up having, like, what if they actually had real mental health issues, and also the game goes completely meta and breaks. And I think that's important because there is kind of a creepy vibe to, I don't know, your bog standard romance visual novel, where it literally is just kind of objectifying the women in that. And I know I sound like, Anita Sarkeesian there, but surprisingly that she never talked about that. But this kind of feels like a reconstruction. It's like, okay, we took apart what was wrong with, or what was we had an issue with in romance visual novels. Okay, but now what? Do we just say, okay, we broke in it, we broke the fourth wall with Doki Doki Literature Club. We've kind of explained how you really would be kind of a like, we made you feel bad for playing something like this. Let's take the good stuff about it, i.e., we want to tell a compelling love story and have really well written characters, and just make it, and have our own distinct art style that's not just the most generic anime style that we can make. And that's where I think a game like this came along. And I think it's very refreshing that, despite it being made by a bunch of 4chan anons and having lots of references to, millennial specifically online culture and video games and everything, the fact that it feels so completely sincere really worked for me. The fact that, the game doesn't kind of break the fourth wall. It doesn't. It never gets cynical. It doesn't kind of say, "Oh, you're kind of a bad person for doing this." It does everything right, and just writing wise, the fact that every little detail seems to have a payoff. That's always a sign that something is really well written. When they pay that much attention to the small details, you can tell that they also are going to understand the broader story. And yeah, on the topic of, hey, should you feel bad about playing this because, oh, this is some romance visual novel where you feels like you're objectifying the characters. The worst ending kind of rubs your face in that, of the fact of, hey, you wanted a bad ending, we're going to give you the worst ending possible, where everybody loses out and everybody is miserable, and you do kind of feel bad you do feel pretty dirty for doing it. You do kind of have to go out of your way to do it, because but yeah, I'll explain how it works. And what sets I Wani Hug That Gator apart from, I think, a typical romance story is the fact that, because on the surface you think, okay, I get what this is going to be about, and that's what I thought originally. It's like, okay, hey, you get to date a cute gator girl, how sweet. And they make Olivia almost too charming, and the fact that, yes, she's in a wheelchair. Yes, she has a lot of emotional or not mental health issues, but she has a lot of emotional issues because she's a teenager. She's super cute. She's a talented artist. She's likes anime and video games, so it's almost too perfect. But what I love is the fact that the endings that you get are dependent on certain choices you make throughout the story, which are depending on the choices, they'll give either you or her a point. Though at no point do you actually have to choose between giving you or her a point. It's the decisions will either give you or her a point or none. And so the point is of the game is you're trying to build up both you and Olivia. Your character isn't just a completely anonymous surrogate for the player. They also kind of have their own personality, which is also, a nice, you can say it's a subversion of that trope, but it's nice to at least give your character, who's literally supposed to be, an the incognito icon on, was it Google or something, an anonymous, internet guy. It really characterizes him. The fact that his parents are always at work, he never really had any friends. Like he's one of those, this stung with me, right? Is that he loves watching like multi-hour long analysis videos of movies and video games, a large amount of which he's never actually watched or played, which I can definitely relate to that, unfortunately. So I like that that's called out. And so yeah, I guess I like the message, the fact that it's a very sincere love story, which is so refreshing after all these, game after game or story after story we've gotten for decades that have to subvert it, where, oh, the girl just ends up with nobody, or, they don't end up in love, and oh, it's a tragedy. Whereas this, you actually can get a happy ending, which I think is nice. And it's able to do this without being overly saccharine. Uh, I mean, the fourth and best ending that you can get is a bit saccharine, but it feels earned because okay, you made the best choices to build up both you and Olivia, and it ends with Inko proposing to her, and you get it explores every aspect of all the characters because the various characters, not just Inko and Olivia, are actually really interesting. Like Olivia herself, let's talk about her. Is the fact that she was born in a wheel, or she was born without the ability to use her lower legs, so she can't walk. So she's always been in a wheelchair. Her mother died when she was young. Her dad works for a defense contractor and is constantly traveling, and he just can't take care of her. So he let her. He basically has her adopted by her godparents, the Paynes, who are just a very nice, typical suburban dinosaur family. They're like the frilled lizard dinosaurs, and it's kind of nice. I like a lot of the little references in the game, like how the dad Randy is based off of Dennis Nedry, who is Wayne Knight's character from Jurassic Park, the big fat guy that gets the lizard spray on him. Or that they go to St. Hammond High School, which John Hammond is the guy that made Jurassic Park. Not the director, but the guy who, in the story, made Jurassic Park. That, all the fact that they're dinosaurs does come up a lot. Like the fact that Olivia actually is able to walk a bit using her tail, because an alligator or baryonyx tail is basically pure muscle. And what makes that even better is that, sorry, I lost my train of thought. So stuff like that, or the fact that okay, they're cold-blooded, even though dinosaurs, a lot of them actually might have been warm-blooded. They have a celebration for the last warm day of the year, and so and you kind of notice how the dinosaur characters get cold a lot easier than Inko, who's a human. They kind of make fun of him. They have their own slurs, like skinny is the slur for a human, which is funny. And but speaking of the racism is it's also refreshing in the game is that literally there is nothing woke whatsoever in the game. There's no LGBT anything. There's no message about, I don't know, there's no anti traditional values. There's nothing like that. Like traditional families are actually portrayed as the best thing. Like the Paynes are a nice, wholesome, intact nuclear family. And so yeah, you have the Paynes, who have a son named Damien, who's like your best bro. He's like your typical athletic, not quite super smart, but really happy-go-lucky character. And he's got an annoying little brother named Vinny. And they also have their friend Liz, who's like a brontosaurus, so she's got a really long neck, and so to accommodate it for that, so when she's in her car, she just kind of coils her neck into a little spiral or into a little spring so she can see. And again, I love the little details like that. She's like your bookworm friend, and you hang out. You also kind of make friends with Ben McKnight, who's a parasaur, who's the student council president, who's also a photographer like Inko, because that's kind of Inko's passion for the arts is photography. And he's got a girlfriend who's Mia, who's like the evil bully character, which I kind of like that the bully character is actually the girl this time, and she's actually dating one of your friends, so that kind of makes the dynamic a lot more interesting. Like Ben is like a complete nerd pushover, and we get a lot more development with him, especially in if you get the fourth ending. The fact that he's basically actually manipulated his girlfriend Mia for a long time because he can basically get her out of any trouble because he's the student council president, but she's also blackmailing him because she realizes, oh, he's on antipsychotic medication. And where this plays into Olivia, and it's what makes Olivia really interesting, is the fact that so Olivia's in a wheelchair, and she's also an artist. She's a really talented painter. And she won in her sophomore year, or freshman year, she won an art contest. And the problem is that she hates the fact that she won because of her condition and because Ben wrote an article in the school newspaper about, hey, disabled girl wins art contest. And she has this inferiority complex to the fact that she doesn't think she can earn anything on her own. She doesn't feel like she feels like anything that she gets in life is only because of her condition, that people feel sorry for her, so that she didn't actually earn winning that painting. And so what happens is there's another art contest, and you're in your senior year in the game. And so you take a photo and you enter it, and it was going to win, or what happened is Olivia swapped out your picture with hers because she just wanted to see if she could actually win on her own and not because she's in a wheelchair and people will feel pity for her. And it's a really interesting way of exploring, somebody in that condition. And I haven't really seen some media do that before, where, hey, they feel really bad the fact that people want to help them. But what the game tries to tell you is that you need to encourage her to also... It's fine that she should be independent and she should be able to, that she wants to be able to do as much for herself as possible, but also that it's okay for her to get help, for her to let people around her that love her help her. And you happen to be one of those people, because when you find out that the paintings were swapped, she runs out into the rain, like trips over her wheelchair and is like flat in the mud. And you kind of pick her up and, you talk, you can see it in the image that I have on screen under the umbrella, and just kind of hash it out of like why she feels this way. And you actually have to pry into her to ask, like, why are you doing this, as opposed to just flat out forgiving her. And then she'll kind of spill the beans on like her and Ben and like why she feels this way. And and that kind of leads into more of the endings, right? Is you have like other significant events throughout the school year, like the fact that you go to an arcade, and she used to be like really, really big name in the arcade, and she's against like this pro player at a fighting game, and he's letting her win again because of her condition. And so if you cheer her on, the guy she's playing against figures out, hey, hey, that's that girl, and he kind of talks to you and Damien, and he's like, is it okay that I go easy on her? And you're like, no, like, let her fail on her own. And that's kind of a lesson, because that's one of the options you can pick when you're under the umbrella with her, is to let her fail, because it's not just that she wants to know that she can succeed on her own, she also wants to know that she can fail, that I guess as part of her desire to be treated like a normal person is she doesn't want to get let off the hook. She doesn't want to just be able to get away with everything. And that's, again, really interesting. So he beats her in the arcade game. You just talk more and more about like your thoughts for the future because it's your senior year, and lots of like nice coming of age stuff like that. Mia, the bully character, is blackmailing Olivia because he's like, "Hey, I know what you did with the art contest, so you're going to do our homework for you." And another, probably one of the most important characters, the most important character outside of Olivia and Inko, is Mr. Iadakin, who's like this pterosaur, who's your art teacher. And he was a massive influence on Olivia because she had been going to the school for years. You've only been here for 1 year, and he's like a really really effective, great teacher, art teacher for her. And so he's the one that kind of inspired her. He's the one that kind of helped her along with her artwork. And what we end up, and there's a great scene where they're stuck in the school because there's a massive rainstorm that's flooding everything. And so Inko and Olivia are kind of stuck there with the Iadakin. And she ends up seeing the painting again that is like hung up in the hallway where that she won. And it's kind of just been the source of a lot of her misery. And Iadakin has a great moment where he just takes an axe to it and destroys it. And that's kind of a culmination of his character. It's like he knows that this is going to help her, and it does. There's also a great scene where Mia is chasing after Inko and Olivia, and like you manage to both get into the elevator because she has the wheelchair. She needs the wheelchair accessible elevator, and like Mia just goes on a tirade and destroys everything in the hallway. And that comes up later when the principal wants to ask you, Ben, and her, like, what happened. And that's kind of like that's a culmination of all the decisions that you made, is basically how you react to that. Of, are you just going to be honest, or are you going to kind of go play along with it, which is what happens in the worst ending. So things kind of come to a head. Regardless of the decisions that you make, there's still a lot of similar beats. So you hug, you hang out at their house because Olivia lives with Damien and the Payne family. And your decisions will affect mostly is like where you're going to go on your first date and like Olivia's disposition, because if you're really helping her out, like she still gets inspired to do art. Although a climax, I almost forgot to say this about Mr. Iadakin, is he has bone cancer and dies. So, that ends up really affecting everybody. And there's a great moment where Ben is also, he really liked Mr. Iadakin as well. And so he's like, hey, we have to have a eulogy. Olivia, are you in? And you get to finally say, like, the realistic thing is, no, like, he just died, right? Like, we just found out about his death today. We are not ready to say goodbye yet. We need time. And that really helps bring Olivia up, or I think Inko as well. But point being is her slump after Iadakin dies, and the fact that her wheelchair gets broken because she was trying to get to this fountain that she really wanted to paint. And it's where the romance really starts to bloom, is that you both end up, like, you rescue her once again at this fountain in the middle of winter. And, she breaks her wheelchair, so she's stuck at home for another week because she can't get out. And how bad her artistic slump is going to depend on the actions that you took, because it can get from her basically being catatonic and just not caring about art anymore to, you just got to encourage her a little bit and she'll get out of it and she'll become happy again. And you can kind of choose and it'll, you can't choose, unfortunately, but the choice that you make will affect what your first date's going to be. Like, if you get the worst ending, and this is kind of where I'll explain the different endings, is you just you're going to go to the mall and see some YouTube influencer that you're interested in. Like, this is the ending where, you basically don't care about anybody but yourself, and Inko becomes like a complete psychopath. Like, it genuinely does not care about other people. So you have a horrible date. You're not really there to help Olivia, but you still think that you're like, oh, I can be like the hero and rescue her. And if you go the second ending, which is the one I streamed, is you that's when you give Olivia too much encouragement. You build her up too much, but you don't build up yourself. So she drags you to an art museum, and she just kind of gets obsessed over there. I actually forgot what the third date was, but in the fourth ending, you just go to a nice hibachi restaurant, which is great because hibachi restaurants are cool. And then things come to a head towards the end of the game. Is every year there's a winter formal, so around Christmas time, there's like a winter ball at for St. Hammond High School, and regardless of your choice, you're going to go with Olivia. And Liz and Damien are also going together. And you like hire a limo because unlike in Snoot Game, which is just a bit of tangent on that, where the main character is super poor, I kind of like the difference that you get to play as Inko is like comes from money. His parents are both like really successful architects. They just happen to never be home, but he's able to like afford a limo. He has a really nice kind of suit and jacket on. He and So yeah, you're getting ready for the big night, and whatever type of dress that Olivia's wearing is dependent on the choices that you made. And so like if you pick the first one or the second ending, she's wearing like a simple white dress because she kind of helped make it with Sophia, who is her like aunt. So that's the Payne. Well, she calls her aunt. That's the wife of the Payne family. So it's a nice looking one, but it's not great. If you pick the third ending, you end up not actually going to the formal, and eventually you decide to go back there and just rush to get a dress, and you're in like I guess their version of like Little Tokyo, so you get a kimono for her. If you pick the worst ending, the first ending one, for a variety of, I'll explain in a second, but you have to get a different dress, so you just kind of buy her a very revealing and inappropriate dress. Again, the first and worst ending is truly awful. And of course, in the fourth ending, she, pours her heart and soul into this amazing ball gown, and it's really nice. And so things go down at the formal. And before that, so let's just break down the four endings. So the first ending is, again, you didn't build up either yourself or Olivia, so she's still completely closed off from the world. And she was starting to open up with you, but because you're acting like a psychopath, she just shuts down completely. And I always find Vinny, who's the little brother of the Payne family, is really annoying. But like on the night of the prom, he is supposed to go to like his karate class, having a big sleepover, but he's sick. And we find out he's sick because he wanted Olivia to feel better, so he's making macaroni art of her. And so to really just pour salt in the wound is like Olivia, who has not been built up at all, is just shutting everybody out, just screams at him and tears up his macaroni painting. And that's why actually you have to get a new dress, is because he spits up, and because he's a frilled lizard, he has acid spit, so it destroys her dress. In the second ending, you think, okay, everything is going to be perfect. This is going to be our perfect date night. And you're going to go out, and Olivia is going to have to give a eulogy for Mr. Yadakin because he was like her favorite teacher. But yeah, back to the first ending. So everyone ends up fighting. Liz and Damien decide like they don't even want to deal with you anymore, so they don't even go with you to the prom. They just go separately, and so you and Liz just kind of, or you and Olivia get to the prom, and you actually end up dancing with Mia because, again, worst ending. Olivia still wants to give the eulogy, but she's horribly embarrassed and completely broken and can't just come up with a good eulogy. And so she just starts breaking down crying, and you being the psychopath are like, hey, this is like a perfect shot. This is a perfect like photo shoot or photo opportunity. And it's not even because you're like, I want to be mean to her. It's like, hey, look at this tragic figure of this girl who's broken. So you take a picture of her, she sees you, and it's the most like it's the most sad moment I've ever had in a video game, or at least for a long time. Damien sees you and he just gets pissed. And you don't see Damien get angry ever. He's just usually happy go lucky. But in the worst ending, just his emotions just build up and explode. And so he like destroys your camera. You have to run out and like find Olivia, and you're like, oh, I can still fix this if I just hug her. So you try to forcibly hug her, and you know, despite that being the title of the game, it's so uncomfortable, and it plays the animation where she hugs you or you hug her, she pushes back and falls down the stairs and gets into a coma. And it ends with you're at the hospital and you actually end up finally seeing her father, who looks completely broken. And as you can also see, is Olivia has a little mouse, a little pet rat named Guts, which I guess might be a Berserk reference. And they even kick out Guts, her little pet rat, from the hospital. And so you just kind of leave going, hey, what did I do wrong? And it's just the most sad thing. Like the Payne family is like broken apart. Olivia is in a coma now, and you leave having basically become a monster. The second ending is slightly better, and that's actually the one I got on stream. And it's because I thought this was just a normal romance, right? A normal kind of romance visual novel. So I basically did anything I could to build up Olivia and be like, I don't. It's like, oh, because there's a moment where you and Ben are at a photo shoot for a wedding with Mr. Iadakin, because it's some extra credit, and Inko wants to be a photographer. And you can choose either, hey, talk to Olivia like via text message or focus on taking the photos. And so I did the talk to Olivia. And that's not what you're supposed to do, because you also have to focus on yourself. And so in the simp ending is basically what I got, is you build her up too much. And so when she gives the you fight, it's like you're trying to make a nice perfect plate for her of food for her, like you're basically bending over backwards for her, and she kind of gets too full of herself. And she when she like you make this big plate of food for her from the buffet, and like you arrange it perfectly, and she's like, what is this? I don't care about this, I only eat meat. Like what? Like she doesn't even care about the nice thing that you did for her. And when she gives the eulogy, she's just basically like, Mr. Dawkin did so much for me when all the other students, nobody cared, didn't care, nobody liked them. And, she's making it all about herself and insulting all the rest of the students. Obviously, this gets her, everyone really pissed off at her, and she storms out and breaks up with you until you text her, like, before Christmas, and, like, kind of beg her to take you back. And then it fast forwards to like several years to you are living together. You did get to, you're finally dating her. And it seems like at first, like she got her dream job, or a very realistic, she's working for the art gallery, but she's barely making any money. And and you're working like a dead end job to support her. You're not being a photographer. So, you think, hey, we never see each other now. Let's have a date night. But she's still, like, she comes home really late because she was arguing with some reporter or journalist, because people are still demanding, like, hey, we have this, like, these programs, or let me write an article about the disabled artist. And now, rightfully so, she's like, I want to be able to succeed on my own and not have to be, hey, I'm only successful because people take pity on me. But it turns her just into the ugliest version of herself. Like her model when I first remarked, I'm like, oh, what's Olivia gonna look like when she's older? And it's like, oh, she looks horrible. She looks miserable. And it ends where, the two of you are just in a loveless, broken relationship. The third ending is probably the most realistic ending, and it's the second best ending. Is you're gonna go out to the formal, but Olivia's still kind of in her funk, in her artistic slump. She can't figure out what to say at the eulogy, and you just end up saying, let's just skip the eulogy. We don't need it. Like, let's just do something else. And so you end up just saying, let's just take the metro line, the subway, or the train to the end of the line, see where it goes. And it ends in kind of like a nice little kind of touristy area where you see a bunch of fire dancers, and it's a really cool scene. And at in it, it's like the grandfather, who's the leader of the troop, is like, "Hey, I'm passing on the torch to my granddaughter," and that kind of gives Olivia the inspiration she needs for the eulogy of like what Mr. Adakin did for her. And so it's like they have to rush to find a dress. She gets a really nice kimono, and they think they're gonna make it to the formal on time, but they miss it. And Ben's like, "Hey, you had a commitment and you didn't even follow through on it. Good job." So she wasn't able to get closure, and she kind of falls into a deeper slump. She just doesn't care about school anymore, and flunks out. And then it kind of fast forwards a couple years to they're living together in a nicer apartment though, and Inko is in college for photography, and Olivia is now just like an art streamer. So she's not really making much money, but eventually you decide, hey, let's go visit our old school, and then you eventually visit the cemetery where Mr. Iyadakin was buried, and she's able to give the eulogy there that she always wanted. So you were able to get closure, and you have somewhat of a happy ending, but not everything was completely not everything that needed to be said was said. And so that's where you get the final and best ending. And that's the one where you kind of fully build up both Inko and Olivia. And you when you're in that pivotal scene in the range, you coax out of her why she feels that way. And so at the formal, she's wearing the nicest dress, and you have a really good time. You're both having a wonderful time. She kind of confronts Ben and Mia about everything that's happened, and there's this is like the sweetest, most saccharine scene in the game is, the two of you dance, and you think, oh, it's sweet because he's just kind of swaying with her arms in the wheelchair, and then she kind of stands up using her tail because I think she can still move her upper legs, and so under great stress she's actually able to dance with Inko, though it puts a huge amount of stress on her tail. And so it's really quite moving and touching and sweet. But it's there, you realize, wait, it's like we're gonna have a really nice night. We're gonna go out for ice cream afterwards. Everybody's happy. Wasn't I supposed to give a eulogy? And also, Olivia was able to finish the painting of the fountain that she really wanted. And that was really more of a eulogy than, they say a picture's worth 1,000 words. But she's able to give the eulogy that she wanted, and it was simple and short and really nice. And you also confront Ben and Mia. They break up because they really were just... They kind of show, I guess in a way, the most toxic version of what Inko and Olivia could be. But being the better people, you forgive Ben, and you kind of take him along with you. And then, in our first epilogue, it shows after everybody gets to graduate, and they're off to there's some nearby tropical islands, and you're just kind of taking a nice summer vacation there. And it's you, Olivia, Liz, and Damien, who are also dating, and Ben. And you have a really nice time, and there's a beautiful picture at the end. Olivia has a really nice painting, and then you get the final epilogue where I guess Liz and Damien are expecting a child. Everybody kind of moves on with their life. Mia becomes a mechanic. Even the evil bully girl has a fairly happy ending, or at least somewhat of a satisfying, is able to have a good life. Ben, I think, can't remember exactly what he goes on to do, but he ends up being happy. Everybody seems to improve upon themselves, and Olivia and Inko are they both she makes poster art for movies, and Inko does cinematography shots. So they're both working together so they can see each other all the time, and they're working a pretty nice job. And you finally see at the end, they both tossing coins into a well, and she asks him, or into the fountain, the iconic fountain, And she asks, "Hey, Inko, what'd you wish for?" And then he kneels to the ground, and then they hug again. And that's the and that is I Wani Hug That Gator. And so I know a lot of that was just a plot synopsis, but what I find really deep is the fact that there's that focus on, are you building each other up rather than this being a regular, you are the faceless Chad protagonist who you just basically get to choose what girl do you get with. Whereas in this, it's, hey, there's one girl and she's actually feels like a real human despite being an alligator or a baryonyx. And so you kind of have all that. I didn't get into absolutely everything, but I hope that at least makes you interested. I know I spoiled it, but at the beginning I said, yeah, play the game. I give these people money because they made something that's not woke, and beyond that, they made something really special. The fact not only is this game made with complete sincerity and love and passion, but it's, I think it's kind of resurrected, or it showed what this type of media, a romance visual novel, can be. Because Doki Doki Literature Club was the necessary, in a lot of ways, deconstruction of it, and this feels like the necessary reconstruction of it, where now we can be completely sincere and completely and have be romantic and sweet without cynicism. I guess my only complaint is that there's not more artwork, because there is a number of scenes where it's like, oh, Olivia made this doodle or she did this, and you don't get to see it. Like, so I guess it's a backhanded compliment of just saying, hey, I wish there was more of this. So yeah. And why it says I Wani Hug That Gator is, Wani is the Japanese word for alligator. And so we get to know about that from when we go to the hibachi place in the best ending. But yeah, that is a long video, long-winded, but I hope that encourages you guys to get this game and play it for yourself, and I would like to know what you guys think. So God bless. I'll catch you on the streams, and have a good day.